Everyone, welcome to the Bayou Breakdown. I feel like this is the first one of the year. I'm joined by Jack Tiernan. Jack, how you doing?
I think it is the first, Brian. I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I did a kind of Bayou breakdown. I put it under the playlist when Kellen Moore first got hired, but I think this is much better because you're a Saints fan, a Saints expert. I'm just kind of giving like the base, you know, news. This is what happened. So, what are your thoughts on the hiring of Kellen Moore as your next head coach?
Given the candidacy, I think we're quick to forget the sort of turmoil that happened prior to hiring Kellen Moore, where we had a lot of people just opt out basically, or like say I'm not interested or whatever it is. Mike McCarthy being one of them. There are a couple others who names are escaping me, but at the same time, I'm not sad about Kellen Moore. I think he's been an above average offensive coordinator at the very least for the last three organizations he's been at. Right, looking at Dallas, looking at the Chargers, looking at um, Philadelphia,
Philadelphia.
right? Yeah. So, now he's got a Super Bowl under his belt. He knows what it takes to win, right? I think people have their gripes with Nick Sirianni, but I think at the same time, like learning under somebody like that, learning under Brandon Staley, who obviously we'll touch on later, and even Mike McCarthy, right? Like those are people that he's able to jump in, take pieces from, and then now hopefully be able to kind of build his team around. So I think I'm excited about it. I think we have to give him some slack given the roster construction right now. Like it is going to be what it is for a while. Shout out Sean Payton, but like I think we're gonna like we got to give him a chance. He's got to make do with what he's got, and I think depending on the staff that he builds around him, I think this could be at least a solid year where the NFC South is still pretty wide open.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a lot on the show. The salary cap's just not in a good place because they went all in, which I think they should have when Drew Brees was
Yeah,
there. Like, I have no problem with that at all. I think we've kind of agreed. The problem we have is Sean Payton bailing
chewing and
afterwards. That
screwing.
was
Yeah,
lame. Um, but it has put Dennis Allen in a bad spot, and now Kellen Moore's coming into a bad spot. Granted, the salary cap has gone up, so that can only help. Any more room that can happen is good for the Saints. But I think the big first question that needs to be answered, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. Derek Carr, does he stay or do they get rid of him?
I think. The contract isn't great, but I think it's sort of I think he's got 2 years left is the problem, right? So I think one is guaranteed, and then the year following might be a player option, which he's going to take. So I think for the sake of just like you kind of have to roll with it, I think you have two options in my opinion, and they are get rid of him and say like thanks for your service, like go elsewhere basically, or we keep him on the roster as a very expensive backup, but at that point you just cut him and then we play with our rookie fifth round pick, Spencer Rattler, who I think overall was fine last year. But if you build an offense around him, we might be able to see a little bit more. So I think personally, if I had to pick one of those two, I'm saying get rid of Derek Carr. Like I'd rather see what we got in the new kid.
Yep.
He's more of an unknown, right? Like Derek Carr is kind of a known league average quarterback aside from that 1 year with the Raiders, basically. And then yeah, my thoughts are let's roll with either rookies or like very cheap veterans for the next couple of years and then try to get out of that salary cap hell, which is where we're at right now.
I agree. I think you got to see what Spencer Rattler can do. And I don't think anybody's expecting the Saints to compete this year.
No.
So let's say Spencer Rattler is a complete disaster. Okay. Well, now we know he's a
Right.
complete disaster. We can go forward. So, along with Kellen Moore coming over from the Eagles, he brought quarterbacks coach Doug, and I'm so sorry, Doug, Nussmeyer. Hopefully, that's how you pronounce your
Sounds
last
right.
name. So obviously he was the quarterback coach for the Eagles, Super Bowl champion now, get a little bit of a promotion coming in to be the offensive coordinator. I don't expect you to be an expert on Doug Nussmeyer, but I just like vibing. How do you feel about that?
If anybody can make Kenny Pickett look good, then I think that no, I do think in reality, I think that's if nothing else, there's familiarity with Kellen Moore, right? Who is as an OC, the quarterbacks coach is working closely with the OC. They're going to work closely together in this new capacity as well. So if nothing else, there's that familiarity. Again, it'll be very interesting and telling to see how Jalen Hurts and if for whatever reason he's hurt, Kenny Pickett or whoever the backup is there next year, how they perform without these two guys. But I think if nothing else, there's consistency and solidarity in kind of how they work together. So that should be good for maybe that's more of a justification for Spencer Rattler as well, right? Let's see what we can do with the new guy if we work together and kind of we know we work well. So if it ain't broke, right? I think, yeah, I like the familiarity. I like that sort of that type of hire. So I think that'll be rewarding, if nothing else, for a rookie to come in and hopefully perform well under.
Yeah, no, definitely agree there. And then the other big one, it just happened today at the time of recording. This will go up Monday, so a couple days late, old news, but this is more about the perspective. So the Saints are hiring ex-Chargers head coach Brandon Staley. He was the head coach for the Chargers 2 years ago when Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator. A middling head coach, but a good defensive coordinator, I think. How do you feel about this move?
I like the move, honestly. And you mentioned it before we started recording, is that Kellen Moore was under him, obviously, right? Like that dynamic might be a little strange. I assume not,
Definitely.
obviously. If he accepted the job, I think it's fine, right? But
yeah, right.
I think the biggest thing to think about, for again, same thing, familiarity, right? Like these guys have worked together before, and I like seeing that, not just like hiring their buddies. This doesn't feel necessarily like that type of hire. So I think it'll be good to see them work together. I think a good example of this would be like a Matt Patricia, right? Or like a who's the Patriots OC that they just brought back, and I can't think of his name ever.
Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. I think this is a Josh McDaniels situation, right? Where he is a good OC, especially in the Patriots system, but as a head coach, he's terrible. And I'm not saying Brandon Staley's terrible, but I think it's sort of a little bit less explosive than that, sort of, where you bring Brandon Staley back as a DC. His focus is on being a DC. I think he's going to be a solid addition. We have a lot of really solid independent pieces on defense too, if you look at it, right? Like, again, getting older, but Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, I don't know what we're going to do with Chase Young, but like people like that who are able to kind of plug and play. No Marshawn Lattimore anymore, unfortunately, but like our safeties and corners are okay now, not great without Lattimore. But I think for me, I'm happy with it. Again, you get a guy who was okay as a head coach, but ultimately good as a coordinator. He got a head coaching job for a reason at some point, right? So he was good at what he did. Let's put him back in that position, see how well he can do. Kind of for him, let's kind of recapture some of the value that he had as a DC, and hopefully make that just a better organization in general. This seems like consistency, right? These guys have worked together. We have them established early. Great. Let's go into the year kind of with a plan in action and roll with it. So I'm a fan of the hire for sure. Anytime we can get a former head coach in a coordinator position, I think is a win.
Definitely. So I guess like full on pretty happy with the hires going into this new era of Saints football.
I think so. I think, listen, anybody that's not Dennis Allen is a win. I would have liked to see a little bit more of a look into at least a public look into Darren Rizzi, because I thought he did a decent job with what he was given last year, and the guys really seem to like him, right? You have a lot of players out there advocating for him publicly, Kamara included. So like I'd like to see kind of like, I don't know really what went into that. Of course, no surprise, he went to Denver, so he's with Sean Payton now. But
of course, yeah,
no surprise to anybody. But I think for me, for what it's worth, I'm happy with it. I wish that we weren't. I think we would have gotten a lot more interest and better candidates. I'm not saying these are bad candidates, but like a little bit more interest in the head coaching position, and therefore a little bit more of like proof of concept if we weren't in such cap hell thanks to Sean Payton. And no, Mickey Loomis also. Like,
yeah.
He's not blameless here. So I think it's sort of, I'm happy at the end of the day.
No, I totally agree. I think that's the one thing that held some people who maybe would have pursued this away, just because it's like in the NFL, if you like fuck up your first head coaching gig, it's kind of hard to get another one.
Right.
You go into like coordinator jail for a while, and you have to like work your way back out of it. So
Brian Flores, right? Good example.
Yeah. He's, and was he someone who interviewed with it or was like in contention for this?
I think we talked about it. I don't actually ever think
maybe someone people floated as like maybe Brian Flores could be. Yeah. But he'll get another head coaching job one day, I'm sure. But
that's the thing. Who knows when? It's been, how long has he been not been an agent for? 4 years at this point. So
right. Yeah. So very interesting there. Well, anything else you wanted to add before we get on out of here?
No, I don't think so, man. I think it'll be an interesting season to say the least. It might be a bridge year, to be quite honest. Let's get out of some of these salaries, but oh well.
Yeah, that'll be all right. You need those bridge years to, get to the other side and get everything
True.
better. So it'll be good. We'll be here breaking it all down. And of course, we have the at the buzzer segment with Jack and Ryan. We got the new Around the Diamond revamped segment where we're talking about baseball. And Jack, I'm sure you'll come on for some of those because we're going to try
Sure.
to tackle it as a team. So should be a lot of fun. Jack, thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, Brian. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you all in the next one.